When the Prius Plus first arrived on our long-term fleet a year ago, it sounded like the answer to many families' dreams. You get the same fuel-saving hybrid technology as on the normal Prius, but with more space and practicality, including 2 more seats to pop up. So what was it like to live with in reality? To drive, the Prius Plus feels just like a regular automatic car, and as it's a hybrid, you just fill it up with petrol in the usual way. You certainly don't notice the switch between the electric motor and the petrol engine, unless that is, you accelerate quickly, in which case the petrol engine makes quite a racket. Which is why it's hard to get excited about driving the Prius Plus. From the sound it makes when you put your foot down and its slightly slow-witted handling, it seems to prefer to go gently. Still, when the petrol engine's at low revs, or the car's working on electric power, there's very little noise from underneath the bonnet, which of course means that you tend to notice the rush of wind and road noise instead. Our T-Spirit model comes with sat-nav, a touchscreen infotainment system with more features than on the lower trim level, and black leather upholstery. This has been a godsend with my toddler in the back. It's really easy to wipe clean. The touchscreen is tricky to use though, as a lot of the virtual buttons are too slim to hit accurately on the move. There's also too much glare from it, even in normal daylight, which can make the sat-nav really tricky to use. We've also struggled with the reversing camera, as the fisheye lens doesn't give a clear enough idea of just how close you are to the car behind, and there are no beeps to guide you instead. These aren't even an option. The Prius Plus also has all the usual features you'd expect of a car of this price, but it still doesn't feel like a 30 grand car. The interior looks too cheap, with lots of hard and unappealing plastics. And to my eye, the dash looks like a 1980s idea of futuristic, though the display showing how the car uses its energy is good. What's also disappointing is that the panoramic glass roof, which my kids have loved, is now an £850 option instead of being standard on every Prius Plus, but the car still costs the same. Of course, part of what you're paying for here is the hybrid technology that promises low fuel costs, but these don't happen by themselves. To get anywhere near the car's official fuel economy of 64 miles per gallon, you need to drive as smoothly and as gently as possible, and ideally at a constant speed. At which point you can encourage the car to switch over to electric power by subtly lifting your foot off the accelerator for a moment. All this is pretty tricky to remember in London traffic though, especially if you're being screamed at from the back of the car. I find this style of driving rather boring too, and it goes straight out of the window if I'm in a hurry, all of which may explain why I've rarely managed more than 50 miles per gallon. So, how has the Prius Plus fared as family transport? Well, there's plenty of space for these 2 little boys, but although there are 3 individual seats across the middle row, the centre one is slightly narrower than the other 2, so you can't get 3 full-size child seats in a row here. There's no ISOFIX on the middle seat either. You can get 3 children in a row, but you'll probably only manage it using a narrow booster cushion like this one, which fits just fine. But it can even be a struggle to get an adult to sit between 2 child seats here. Boots are fairly decent size, although the high floor and low boot cover do limit how much you can get in. It's also annoying that there's no slack built into the front part of the boot cover, so it'll only attach to the rear headrest of the middle row if the seats are tilted back or in their furthest back position. Also, if you're using a Group 1 or Group 2-3 child seat, the Toyota handbook tells you to remove the car's middle seat headrest. However, this means that there's nothing at all to attach the boot cover to in any case, leaving this huge gap here for things to fall out of and which could cause a serious hazard in an accident. Here's another problem. The car's handbook also says that any middle row seats carrying child seats have to be moved to their furthest back position. But this leaves absolutely no legroom for anybody wanting to sit behind, which means that the Prius Plus doesn't work as a 7-seater if you've got any children in car seats in the middle row. You can transport 7 adults, however, provided most of them are a fairly average size. There's plenty of headroom in both rear rows, but 6-footers may find legroom a bit of a squeeze. With 7 on board, there's obviously not that much boot space to speak of, but you can fit in a slim folding pram like this one, plus a couple of shopping bags. The seats are easy enough to fold flat, but there's nothing to bridge the gap between the boot and the middle row seat backs when they're slid all the way forward to create the biggest possible load bay. The fact is, the Prius Plus just isn't as practical as 7-seaters such as the Peugeot 5008 and the Ford S-Max, which have more space, a bigger boot and 3 full-size seats across the middle row, each with its own ISOFIX points. They're more fun to drive than the Prius Plus too, and a lot cheaper to buy, which easily offsets their higher insurance and tax costs. And if our MPG return from the Prius Plus is anything to go by, they'll be just as affordable at the pumps as well. For more information on the Prius Plus, have a look at my weekly updates on whatcar.com.